Welcome and thank you for tapping into some Untapped Keg. I'm here, RJ Zimmerman, here with my buddy Monte Ball.
Hello, hello.
And we are very pleased to be joined by Duke Rumley from Sober AF Entertainment out in Denver, Colorado. How you doing, sir? Woo! Yeah, our applause track.
Yes,
we've been working.
I'm awesome. It is an honor to be on the show. You've got a great IT team. They've been terrific. Thanks for flying me all the way out here. Yeah. This has been great on the show. Great to meet you guys. Love what you're doing.
Put you up in a hotel. Put you up in a suite.
I've never been treated so nice. Thank you so much. This 4 seasons was great.
We appreciate that, but it's awesome to have you here, man. We really, really appreciate you hopping on with us.
Awesome.
Well, thank you for being so adaptable to how we do things. We appreciate that too.
Well, we're all figuring it out right now, right? Trying to figure out how do we do kind of a little technology, keep up the technology. And I love this platform. I love podcasts because, like Zoom, you're always staring at yourself, but on a podcast, you just kind of listen and I can multitask in podcasts where, if it's a Zoom, you can't really multitask. And so I've really enjoyed your guys' show. I've listened to a bunch of them. And I love how real you keep it. And it's, trying to be more impactful than just talking about sports. So I greatly appreciate that.
We appreciate that, man.
Thank you.
Love
Thank you.
So humbles us, for sure.
let's get into it. All right.
Yes.
We love what you're doing. We love that you approached us about this and we looked at it. We're like, okay, this is awesome. Like, yes, we're going to have this guy on. Let us know what Sober AF Entertainment or S.A.F.E is.
Right. So this kid-friendly show or...
we try to keep it mostly family friendly.
So, here's the great news. Sober AF Entertainment, the acronym is S.A.F.E, S-A.F.E.
Yep.
So it's really Sober Entertainment, and we set this up so the AF can mean 100 things. It can mean sober and fun entertainment. It can mean sober alcohol-free entertainment. It can be sober asshole-free entertainment. There's a lot of things it could stand for.
Sure.
So I love this question just because I like to deflect it by saying last night, 224 kids overdosed and died of drugs. And the night before that, 224 kids overdosed and died of drugs. And it was 82,000 kids over the last 12 months who have died of drug overdose. So, instead of being overly concerned, Mr. News Reporter, about what this AF can mean, let's talk about the real thing. Like, why is there no secondary culture for these kids besides this ecstasy lifestyle we're seeing at musicals and beer pong at all the sporting events? So we got to do something for these kids. So that's what my response is. But it's also, if it was called Sober Entertainment, it would not sound as good, right? But Sober AF Entertainment,
right.
We need to bring a little edge to this. And kind of what we were discussing before, like we're going to have not just like a sober support tailgate, we're going to have a badass sober support tailgate. And if it's lame, the kids smell it, they know it's lame, and they don't come back.
Mm-hmm.
So you got to have the big screen TV. You got to have some decent food. Anyways, I'm kind of jumping ahead of myself a little bit. So the name is Sober AF Entertainment. We started 3 years ago. I did like a sober support event maybe 4 years ago, and a buddy showed up with Sober AF cookies written on it. And I just love the name, right?
That's fantastic. That's really cool.
We appreciate that, man. So the acronym, so S.A.F.E, Sober AF Entertainment. I think you made a great point about, obviously providing those stats, those numbers. You cannot deny numbers, not deny stats. And then just talking about how the media tries to, that's the media for you. They're going to focus on the AF part, but it's like, wait a second, you're focusing on this. Let's focus on the 86 or what was it, 84,000 kids who have
82,000 people in the U.S. died of drug overdose. The year before it was 72,000. The year before that it was 70,000.
Exactly.
So it has gone up. It skyrocketed from like 20,000 all the way up to this 82,000 number over the last 12 months. And it's it's getting worse. I mean, these kids are isolated at home. They can't get drugs. Fentanyl is cheap coming over the border out of Mexico, and it is killing, on average, 224 kids every single night. So, A, we need to talk about it. B, we got to educate them on it. And C, maybe give them another option. It's not like, hey, we're this group that is like, hey, you can't do it, abstinence based your entire life. Right. We're just like, hey, you know what? You want to take a night off, we got a spot for you.
Yeah. I think that's the important part, having that secondary option for them. There's not a lot, or if any, if I know of, or RJ, if you know of, places that are doing stuff like this.
Not something similar and as big. Like I've seen from your pictures and posts and stuff, like what you do, and like you said, you do it big. You do it right. Like I remember prom, like in high school, one of the groups there, to give people an alternative to drink, actually put on like this like lock-in thing. That was actually, they did a really nice job. They brought in like, bounce house big enough for high school kids. Who doesn't like a bounce house, no matter how old you are? Let's be honest, right? They had like prizes and like a scavenger hunt. There was a battle of the bands, and you could just stay there all night. They didn't kick you out till like 9 o'clock the next morning. They had to be out of there. So like it was an alternative, but like you take that to the next level to help people understand there's an alternative. You don't have to, in order to be social, you don't have to partake in substances. So
yeah,
I would say, so you've been very innovative in the space, so creative. What has helped with that? Because like you said, you got to get kind of, in a 90s term, extreme with it, right? Like everything had extreme there. I really like the AF, like, you're kind of ahead of what, people be able to think is cool, right? Cool. But yeah,
RJ, thank you.
Cool.
Thank you for saying that. And it's true. I mean, there's two aspects to this. A, it has to be cool. And B, we have to also understand, like, there is a little extra awkwardness to being sober, right? Mm-hmm. If you can take a couple drinks and cut off that awkwardness, that's why I drank. And if I'm trying to choose not to drink, we have to, I've started this with the help of my daughter. At the time, she was 23 years ago. So she's 23 now. 3 years ago, we started this. She was at a concert seeing Louis the Child, and she's texting me she needs to take an Uber home. And as a concerned parent, I'm like, all right, what's going on? And it turns out all the kids that she had gone with had taken ecstasy, and she just didn't feel safe driving home with them. And at the same time, my son, who was 16, his best friend got a hold of a weed brownie, and I get a call that I have to pick him up at the high school football game. And I'm like, what's going on? I thought you had a ride home. And he's like, yeah, my friend got a hold of this weed brownie, and he's in that ambulance on their way to the hospital.
Oh my goodness.
And I had just worked in this recovery field. I'm 31 years sober now. I've worked in the recovery field for about 10 years, and I had just seen this spike in overdose deaths. And my kids are in this danger zone. And, my thinking was like, what do I wish I could do right now that 6 months from now, if I'm at a hospital because of this overdose, or God forbid, a funeral of my child, I wish I would have done right now. That was kind of my thinking, like, look, we need to do something now so I don't regret this later. So we came up with this idea of hosting sober sections at music festivals, concerts, and sporting events. And I did that because when I got sober, there was a sober support group inside the Grateful Dead called the Wharf Rats. And they have been around since like the mid 80s. So I got sober in 89. And just this idea, like, there was a group of people staying sober at Grateful Dead shows. Like, like my big fear is like, if I get sober, my life's going to suck, right? There's no more fun. I don't want to live without being kind of this edgy, fun guy. And knowing that there was that sober support group, so I could be kind of, the college student, sober kid 28 days out of the month. But for 3 days, I could then, go to Grateful Dead shows and find a sober wingman, kind of made all this difference. in my mentality, that's those first couple of months, first couple of years. So fast forward, I have this experience with my kids, and I'm like, why is there not that kind of idea at the newer stuff that the kids like? So we did a sober support tailgate at a Bass Nectar show here in Denver. That was our very first one, June 1st, 2018. And they had their own sober support inside the venue called the Hummingbirds. So this group would travel with, or would have a table at all the Bass Nectar concerts, and they hosted some type of like meetup at 8:08 p.m., which is his area code, and that was his number. So it was great, right? That was our first one, really cool. And then we did one at Red Rocks for Big Head Todd and the Monsters, and we're getting like 10s and 15 people. And then we did one at a Rockies game, and we sold 140 tickets in 6 days.
There you go.
And that's where I'm like, all right, so there is actually a real want for this.
Mm-hmm.
And we would like cook hot dogs and hamburgers beforehand. And we worked at this gym, or we worked with, there's a sober gym out of Colorado called the Phoenix. And we set up a wiffle ball in there. But to your point, my daughter said, like, look, this can't be like some group therapy thing. Like, look, we need things to do. We just don't walk up and start talking to each other. So we've learned, like, if you can help someone through that first 10 minutes of being at an event, so make sure there's food, big screen TV, cornhole, something to kind of get them engaged right away. Then, after 10 minutes, they've learned how to do it sober. And I think, there's a lot of learning how to have fun sober when you're new, because everything is a new experience. You're kind of this raw nerve. You don't know anyone, or you're not sure you're gonna like it. So really, that has been one of the things we just tried to do right away. Especially if it's a football game, make sure there's a big screen TV. Of
course, absolutely. And I kind of wanted to take a step back here, because whenever you mentioned whenever you that connection that people make at these events, and now talking about that 10-minute gap window, making sure that they feel comfortable in those 10 minutes. So my question to you is, like, what are some of the success stories that you hear from folks, like the appreciation that you hear from some people who, just like you stated, they don't know what to do. They don't know where to go. They don't know how to acclimate to certain or in certain groups at certain events. So my question is, what are some of these stories that you've heard, like people thanking you and loving exactly what you're doing?
So Monte, thanks. Cool question. There's definitely been a couple aha moments. Like, I don't know why I started this thing. It was like really to help my kids, and it's morphed into this other thing where, I thought for sure we would have run across this on the East Coast or the West Coast, or, rarely have I started kind of a new idea per se, or something that hasn't already been done. So kind of the aha moments I've had with our movement, I just will never forget this 24-year-old kind of pink mohawk kid coming up to a sober tailgate we had with the Rockies. And it was during the wiffle ball, and you just kind of came in and you could just see he just came alive, like, oh my God, like, we can do this. We can do this sober. Like we're going to have popsicles and hot dogs and go to a football game together. Yes. It was like this mind-blowing moment. And it really kind of proved, like, our movement is not for the kids who are 10 years sober flying in from Austin, Texas to go to the Fish show, right? That kid's got enough support. He's spending $300 a night on a hotel and, $100 on tickets, and they have their own sober support. But, it's a little more for a community that's living in a, $500 a month sober living, that, spending $20 on a ticket is a commitment, and we get that. So, so that was one of the aha moments. I had another aha moment where we were doing a sober tailgate at the Colorado State Colorado football game.
Right.
And I wasn't getting much help trying to do this with the Colorado State University, even though my daughter was a student. So I called up the athletic department, and then they called CU's athletic department. And then CU's athletic department was like, hey, we got a collegiate recovery community, I think, on this campus. We'll try to find out about this Duke Rumley guy in Sober AF Entertainment. So then they called the collegiate recovery community, and they're like, oh, yeah, he's a good dude. We've done some stuff with him. And then she told me the story, and I'm like, look, I hope I didn't get you in trouble. I tend to not ask permission and just do a lot of things and start calling around, and somebody's got to fund this thing and someone's got to get the word out. And she's like, no, Duke, you don't understand. Like, the athletic department didn't know we were here, and we've been here for 10 years. Which was like another aha moment. Like, universities are super hard to work with because they're their own collegiate entity, and none of them want to stick their neck out like, hey, we're doing something about this problem of alcoholism or drug addiction, because then they're admitting there's a problem with alcoholism and drug addiction. And half their kids are under the age of 21. So you would think this would be the perfect spot for something like what we do. But they're, very guarded with working with kind of outside entities. So we found some other partnerships that have allowed us to set up a sober tailgate beforehand, and we just kind of fly in and get it funded, and then invite like treatment centers and different sober residences and try to get the word out to the local recovery community and invite the collegiate recovery. But typically they can't toss in too much dough or have their name on any flyers with us. So that's been one of the aha moments. And then New Year's Eve in 2019 going into 2020, so 14 months ago, we had 140 kids at an Avalanche game sober. So that was awesome, just having that many kids sober on New Year's Eve. And then we went across the street to this music festival called Decadence, which is a huge EDM. It's the largest music festival over New Year's Eve. And, we've been there, and this kid comes up and he's like, look, I came here with 2 other kids, and the 3 of us made this pledge we're going to be sober. Yeah. And the 2 of them are using. So I heard you were here. I was either going to use or I was going to come find you. And you could tell this kid was totally triggered. So we kind of pulled him back. We had this big tent, and there was maybe 8 of us, and 2 or 3 of them just kind of talked him down a little bit. Yeah. And the bottom line is he was so triggered. We're like, look, get out of here. Like, this really is no longer a safe place for you. And he got in his car, drove home to his home group. And then he got there by midnight, and they were doing some midnight event. So, it's kind of like little success stories like that, that you can kind of tell, like, just the idea of what we're doing is going to change some lives.
Absolutely. Yeah. I appreciate you sharing that. That's what we love to hear. That's what obviously you love to hear is those stories from people who are just extremely thankful for this opportunity. And it sounds like it's just so weird how what you're doing today is something that is not done all over, because you would just think, based off of the numbers, the stats, that more people would come out like yourself and be like, okay, let's figure out how can we create a safe space for like-minded folks at these events. I think it's honestly a beautiful thing that you're doing. It really, really is, because every single place, unfortunately, entertainment, you're going to see alcohol.
Right.
That's just a fact. That's just America, unfortunately. So it's and of course there's still alcohol, I'm assuming, at these events, but that section that you have, there's no alcohol and or drugs in that environment.
Right.
Right.
Correct.
That's pretty awesome. So what does that kind of look like for the section at the Pepsi Center? In a sense, what does that look like if I were an individual who just bought a ticket? Am I purchasing the ticket through S.A.F.E?
So typically, we'll set up an event and we'll have a link to the tickets, because I do not want to get in the ticket game.
Right.
Just, you don't want to get stuck with tickets. And secondly, we've never made any money on any of our ticket sales. So we call the Nuggets or the Avalanche play at the Pepsi Center, and will ask for, half off tickets or some group rate discount. And we're a nonprofit. So because we're a nonprofit, we're able to get typically these, 40 to 50% off tickets. And then I'll ask for, 150 tickets in a section, and I'll ask for like a boardroom to host an event. So just because, wintertime in Colorado, we are not tailgating outside. So they give us a boardroom, which is crazy. So the kids show up, they walk in, they show their ticket, they'll have an extra pass. So they get like a wristband taken up to the VIP section where the boardrooms are. We're not sitting in that section because we're in the nosebleeds and the cheap seats, but they still get this like VIP experience. We'll set up like cornhole inside the boardroom. Sometimes we'll have either food catered, or we'll give them some, $5 on their ticket so they can go out and get, a hot dog. And then we go and sit together is really the key aspect.
That's pretty cool.
So what I've learned is like alcoholics don't buy things early. So typically we have this ticket block up until like 8 days before the event. And, so I get the call like the day of the event, like, hey man, I need 25 tickets for my, sober living house. I was like, look, you needed to buy them 8 days before the event. We lost the block.
Oh no. That's so true. Alcoholics. Yeah, and I'm saying we, of course, because I'm in recovery. RJ's in recovery as well. But my goodness, my procrastination.
It is that fear of missing out, right? It's like, sounds pretty fun, but you never know when something better is coming around the corner. Right. And I'm pretty sure the Tropicana Tans, massage team is going to come through, or, I'm going to get invited to some other party, or, so we've tried to kind of educate our community. But, to a point you guys made earlier, the CDC came out and said there's 23.5 million people in some portion of recovery from drug addiction or alcohol abuse. So there's 23.5 million of us out there. So, I mean, there's a big enough need. Mm-hmm. And I've worked with legislators trying to get funding for what we do. And they're like, look, if we try to cut funding for like, breast cancer, there's like riots at our door. Right. If we cut funding for addiction, nobody shows up. Like it's a super
motivated.
Motivated. And, I think we're under this idea of anonymity. And this idea of anonymity means I'm not allowed to tell you about us, and I'm not allowed to fight for us. And, like a closed mouth doesn't get fed, right? Mm-hmm. So if we're going to have our mouths closed, we're not going to get a little bit of funding. Trust me, I know how to do events cheap, right? You can get 50 pieces of chicken for $40, and you can get 10 pizzas for $60, and you can ask for a free place to have this party. So it doesn't have to be expensive.
Right. But it'd be nice if it was, right?
Yes. So, I'm 31 years sober. I'm 53 years old. I'm probably not the right face for what we're trying to accomplish, but I've also had kind of the experience behind me that people will say yes to. So I'm sure if, I had, 3 months of sobriety and I was kind of this 24-year-old kid, it's a little tougher to get some of these people to trust us with the, a boardroom at the Pepsi Center.
I mean, you just got to tell those kids, look, I got sober in the 80s.
Yes. 4 decades ago.
In the 80s, meaning, just saying, just
watch a movie. Watch a movie about the 80s. Yeah. I got sober during that time.
Yeah, that's drugs were rampant. I mean, obviously still are, but the 80s most definitely, over sensationalized the use of drugs. 70s as well. I mean, so that's an awesome thing that you.
Well, a quick story about the 80s and why I am not a heavy drinker and an alcoholic. I had this intense experience with alcohol as a teenager, and it rewired my brain and everything. My ideas like it's Monday at school, but I'm thinking about what are we going to do Friday night and Saturday night? You know, how are we going to get alcohol? And I talked to my parents. I'm from South Bend, Indiana, but I talked to them and let me go to the University of Arizona. And so I'm at University of Arizona, and Nogales, Mexico is only 30 miles away, and there's no drinking age, and Corona's 25 cents and tequila's 25 cents. So we would go down there in Super Bowl weekend of '88. I'm down there with 4 or 5 fraternity brothers, and one of them had fake $20 bills. And so we go down there. I'm in a blackout. He is washing his cash, meaning he's taking our cash to pay for the drinks, going up, paying with his fake 20s, getting, you know, American currency back. Yep. And we did this at a bunch of different bars. And long story short, I get caught with him and basically wake up in this holding cell in Mexico. And, you know, there's like 150 people in this jail and these 2 gringos who don't speak Spanish. And this is now Saturday morning. Sunday's the Super Bowl. Finally, mom flies down on Monday. She starts negotiating my release. They tell her it's $25,000. Of
course.
She says, well, I have 4 other kids at home. Good luck with this one. So she walks, and the next day they lowered my my bail money to $4,000. So that's my trade-in value. If I get drunk, she can take me back and get her $4,000 back. So she says to me, like, look, I know you weren't involved with this, but if you hadn't been drunk, this wouldn't have happened. And she left. And the following weekend, there's a party in San Diego, and I can't go. I got a week of school to catch up on until I saw this keg get moved onto the RV. And then my mind changed its own mind. This is this abnormal, you know, thinking that I have. And I started drinking. And once I start drinking, you know, I thought the normal reaction for everyone is like, you want to get amped up. And I think that is part of my issue is I get thirstier, because I'll never forget my mom being like, why can't you have 2 beers? And I'm like, what do you mean? She's like, I have 2 beers. I catch that buzz. And I'm like, I can relate to that. And she says, I know then it's time to stop. And I thought that was the weirdest thing I'd ever heard.
That's like, when it's time to have 7 more. Yeah. Come on.
Right. I was like, Mom, that's first gear. You put the clutch in and you put it into second gear.
That's right.
And you clutch in, you go into third gear. So I go to San Diego. I get drunk with a different fraternity brother. We miss the RV coming back. We go out drinking Sunday night. You know, I'm this poor college student, and he's like, look, don't worry, I got a Visa card. We can take a Greyhound bus home on Monday. And I'm like, great. In the middle of this blackout, he realizes he can buy tickets on the Southwest cheaper than the Greyhound bus. So he buys his tickets, but I'm in this blackout. Anyways, I come out of a blackout. I'm smoking a joint in a small bathroom thinking it's a Greyhound bus, but it's actually this Southwest Airlines flight. So smoke alarms are going off, and I open up the door thinking I'm the back of this bus, and I'm on the 737 with 30 rows of people staring at me. And, you know, that is what makes me an alcoholic and not a heavy drinker, right? I have this, this mental blank spot to alcohol that I'm going to change my mind and drink. And then I have this, it's all gas, it's no break, kind of this accelerator when I start to drink. And then just for me, just bad things happen. You know, it was never, you were so witty and clever and charming in your blackout. It was
so true.
You know, little implosions or big explosions, but it was never good. So at 21, I thought maybe life could be okay for a couple months without alcohol. And it's just kind of rolled to being now 31 years and trying to have an epic life still without alcohol is kind of the mission right now, or the struggle right now.
That's amazing. That's weird. Thank you for sharing.
Sure.
Yeah, that was, you had me drawn in right there.
Right.
On that story.
I felt myself in your story too, because that's how I would drink as well. Like, you know, you have that second one, you have that third one, and then being from Wisconsin, it's like, oh, let's drink all of it. You know, we'll shut this bar down. And I mean, I remember we threw a house party one time. We had 8 kegs in one night. House party.
Ooh.
I just kept going to the gas station. Don't ask me who drove. I don't remember, but I know in the morning we had 8 kegs at our house. So like, yeah,
Stories.
similar vibes with drinking and why we are alcoholics. So
You want to know the one thing that I think about, Duke? The one thing that I think about is obviously the sober AF entertainment. The mission is so great, so awesome, so different that as you were speaking, I'm thinking about how would Wisconsin handle that? Like, do you think, RJ, how would that be up here in this state? And I say this, Duke, because just like what RJ stated, Wisconsinites, alcohol is
it's big in our culture.
It's the norm. It's the norm in this state.
It's stitched into everything. Everything.
Yeah, it's the norm. And again, man,
our baseball team is the Brewers, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was just thinking about the pushback, not necessarily the pushback, but the lack of engagement that would possibly go on here with that. Just because people aren't going to know what it is, and you're talking to what, an event with no alcohol? Absolutely not.
Right.
I believe also then that makes this place that would be awesome to have it.
Damn straight.
You're challenging that culture mindset, that cultural mindset. And so whenever you're thinking of, contracting with certain venues and what have you, is that stuff that comes in your mind? Like, okay, how is this going to be viewed at this, venue during an event, or how are people going to, digest this?
Right. So the stigma of this, like alcohol is our lifestyle, is real. But we also go where we're wanted and needed. So it sounds like we're needed. And I'm sure there is a strong recovery community. And I'm sure there might be a sober, curious community of kids under 21, or in this, when I say kids, I'm 53. So people wanting to take a night off, So we have a pretty low bar to entry for us. But to your point, culturally, we're not always welcome. When I'm working with certain universities, and it was Colorado State University, I'm throwing them under the bus right here.
Fort Collins.
Yeah. Right. And I was like, why are you not supporting this event more? Like, we need you to promote this throughout the school. And he's like, look, we have all kinds of different sponsorship with local breweries here in Fort Collins. We can't be sponsoring your event. And I was like, you're a university with 50% of your kids under the age of 21. I appreciate you being honest with me, but that's kind of a bold statement to a parent who has a student here. Because really the culture is, there's this drunk culture, but as a parent of a woman in college, I'm worried about date rape. I'm worried about inappropriate behavior towards her. I want her to feel safe. I want her to be safe.
Mm-hmm.
They said to you that they care more about money than.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. That's what's so weird. Like, you can promote sobriety and still promote like responsible drinking. Like, why is there a disconnect there? That's odd.
That's so true.
Yeah, and who doesn't want to protect their kids from fentanyl poisoning? So, and we try to make it a really low bar to enter and work with us. We're not preachy, it's not this huge abstinence movement. We're like, hey, if you want to take a night off, we got a spot for you.
Nice.
We're here for hooking up with a sober wingman, wingwoman, and just kind of recharge your sober, battery. So kind of the question is, sporting events are easy, right? You get half off tickets, you throw an event beforehand, and you set up a link. Concerts have been really hard. They don't need help selling tickets, right?
Yeah.
Right.
So they typically have not returned my phone call. So we'll almost go in. So we'll go to Red Rocks, and there's an upper north parking lot that we'll go to. We'll throw some yellow balloons out of the trunk of the car. We'll have some food. Everyone will meet there. And then we try to all go in and sit together. And that's kind of how we've done the concert stuff. But we really haven't had any luck getting discounted seats up to this point.
Right.
And then music festivals have been really easy to work with because we'll call them up and say, hey, we're this nonprofit. Here's what we do. If you give us a tent space, we can set up a sober support tent. Ideally, we get like 6 tickets for free. We give those to our volunteers. Everyone works the booth for 2 hours and then spends the rest of the time at the music festival. So we've had a lot of success with kind of music festivals. And really the idea is like, it's not like it's a AA meeting. You know, this is just a place to come in, charge up your battery, meet some other folks who are trying to stay sober at this thing. You're not the weirdo, right? There's others of us out there, you know, doing it. And I think just that little like, oh my God, I'm not the only one is really, you know, making that difference. And then, you know, for every 100 who hear about us, maybe 1 come, but those other 99 hear about it. And it's smashing this stigma that my life will be over if I get sober.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. You know, that's something that, you know, you mentioned earlier, how we kind of sit in our anonymity and we're not very vocal, especially like funding and stuff. That definitely comes from the stigma of, you know, when you're admit to being an alcoholic, when you admit to having a substance dependency, that stigma that there's something wrong with you, that people look at you like that you don't really want to put yourself out there like that. So I mean that's where it starts, but trying to smash those stigmas, like you're saying, like that's the big thing. That's why we talk the way, you know, what we talk about ourselves. You know, we tell our stories, we let people know, like, you know, what we went through so that you can possibly relate. Right. One thing that I've noticed, especially through the sober lady, Nikki, over in Britain, through her, like, we're starting to get a little bit more vocal. There's a big community of us. And, you know, I'm hoping that you're starting a little bit of a movement here that we can move through being okay with being public about our sobriety, and not people just walking past. They're not going to walk past their event and go, oh, those are the sober kids. Look at those losers. Just stand there. They don't even know what to do. Like, you actually have fun stuff to do. Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
No, that's such
that's awesome.
Point. Such a great point, because you feel like at times you feel like an outcast. You do. Yeah. You feel like an outcast, and then it seems like when you, even if you're at a certain point in your recovery journey to where, you know, you got it, you know, you're you know, the training wheels are off, and you got a good support system. Still, when you go into these certain events or certain groups, knowing obviously, okay, I'm not going to drink, I'm not going to use, you still feel as if like that's tattooed on your face. You feel awkward. Everyone tends to bring it up too, like, oh, are you doing okay? Like, I'm fine. I'm doing okay.
You got that scarlet letter on you.
Yeah, it's like no, you can drink if you want. Like, I can't handle it, but you can. But I just can't, you know, put that into my system anymore. So it's awesome to know that there is an organization, S.A.F.E, out there where I can go into an event and be around folks just like me. So it's already off the table. It's already off the table. The you know, talks about using or whatever, or if you're feeling, that's off the table. It's now, let's just have some fun with people just like ourselves and mingle, have a good time, a sober good time, and connect. You know, grabbing other people like yourself and placing them into your support system, and obviously helping them as well is
so Monte
story.
Amazing point, because if I go to something like that by myself, I guess I'm only thinking about this now, but there's almost like this mantra you have to put in your head, like, okay, remember you can't drink, you know, or if somebody offers me weed, you know, you can't do it. But if I'm there with another sober wingman, it's like the two of us are like 10 times stronger than just myself being there.
Absolutely.
Right. Because I got this little voice in my head, like, nobody will know. You can do it, you know. It's still in there every once in a while. And it's weird. Like when I fly, he talks to me. He's like, all right, we're getting on an airplane. You know what you do on an airplane, right? You drink on an airplane, and or like an airplane bar when you're by yourself. So it's
man,
weird.
You're touching the nerve right there.
Yeah.
That's me right there. Airport bars. I'm right there.
Right.
Those trigger me when I go into an airport. I'm like, oh man. I'm like, okay, nope, stay focused, stay focused, stay focused.
Right.
So I'm right there with
we're hoping that there is, a giant movement here. And we think we might be a little early, but not too early. We've done 64 events up until COVID hit.
Mm-hmm.
March 18th of last year, we're supposed to bring out the game ball for a Nuggets game, and they were going to say, thank you, Sober AF Entertainment, with the Attorney General and one of the state senators. So that got canceled.
Oh, that's
so
nice.
we went virtual, and we hosted 3 virtual music festivals on Twitch, and we had 130 artists play over May, June, and July. And we had 40,000 people watch. So we had this huge number of people watch. But it was really hard building community.
Yeah.
So 40,000 people watched, and each artist had to say, thank you, Sober AF Entertainment, for the S.A.F.E Festival.
Wow. Congrats.
Yeah.
That is a successful event.
Yes.
Wow.
So really, we're just figuring this out on the fly right now. So it was great. And then we're kind of doing some quasi in-person and virtual stuff now. For the Super Bowl, we went down to Tampa, and we had 120 people at a Super Bowl party where we had 3 musicians. We rented out this nonprofit gym, and we had Miss America come to it, who is a trained pharmacist, Miss America 2020. But we also had like the drug czar, so the deputy director of the White House's National Office of Drug Control Policy, on his own nickel, flew down. We had a former NFL player, Randy Grimes. He spoke at it also. So we're kind of getting back into the in-person stuff. Mm-hmm. So I would love to do the Notre Dame Badgers game. That would be a good game to do a little sober tailgate at.
That would be that'd be really cool.
Awesome.
It's at Soldier Field next year, I think, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
That'll be awesome.
There's one to get into. Yeah.
Chicago.
Or we'll figure something out. I mean, ideally, what we have done, we've asked our community to host 72 sober tailgates on their own this fall, and that we're going to outreach for them and show them how to do it. And that's to honor the 72,000 people who died of drug overdose in 2019. So Penn State reached out to us. Virginia Tech has reached out to us. TCU. We've got, so right now we have 150 tickets for the Colorado USC game, October 2nd. Virginia's playing Virginia Tech in Blacksburg, September 2nd. We have a Brewers game. I have 1,000 tickets to one Brewers game this year. It's in Colorado. It's June 18th. So we're going to have 1,000 people sit together for a Rockies brew crew. So you guys have to come out for that Friday night.
That would be fun. That'd be fun.
That's not a bad idea.
I'll have to let my buddy know about it too. He lives
Right.
in Arvada, so I'll reach out to him to see if he'd like to go. That's really cool. You're
right.
You're not just. I really like that you're not just sitting down and I'm like, Denver is my area. Like I'm just gonna focus on Denver. Like you're reaching out to everybody across the nation. You're going all over the place.
Right.
It is awesome. So you've been innovative in this space, and you had to get creative. And you talked about how COVID kind of derailed things. It derailed a lot of people. So like being adaptable. How did you come up with the music fest, and what was that like getting that together?
It was really hard. I definitely never want to get back in the music business again. I'll tell you that after. I mean, but what I have learned is like that. The kid who loves music festivals and wants to be sober is going to fight for Sober AF Entertainment. Right. That kid, he's the one calling me. He's the one saying, hey, we want to do it at this event. They are the most passionate group of kids. So I am, I just don't want to be putting on music festivals. I want to,
You still want to be
basically,
involved. Just
yes, I want to support kids at music festivals. Right. Well, I don't want to pay for them. I don't want to pay for them and hope people show up and sell tickets to them. But we may end up doing stuff like that. The reality is, so we've had to learn and we've had to be innovative. And somebody came up with the idea, hey, let's do this music festival. We'll have 2 channels with different types of music playing at the same time. So we found a group that would hire the artists, and we paid for all these artists. And then we realized no musician wants to go up against another musician. So instead of having 2 channels, we decided to have just 1 channel on Twitch, and we decided to do it over 5 days. So it was a 5-day, maybe we had 70 bands or 50 bands. It was probably 50. Anyways, it was a lot. And it was on Twitch. I don't know if you guys know Twitch.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, live streaming. Usually kids play video games, and there's 100,000 kids watching Ninja play Fortnite. So I think like the first night maybe we had 500 people, and then the second night it was like 700, and then the third night we had like 1,000 live views. And at one point, we were the #1 channel on Twitch with like 2,500 people watching at the same time. These different musicians.
Fantastic.
So this was May. So that was our first one. So we'd gone out and gotten some sponsors, and we probably broke even on it. And then we did another one in June. So the first one was a total of 27,000 people watched over the 5 days. And then the second one, we had, I want to say it was 10,000 people watch over 3 days. And the numbers were just kind of going down. And then in July, we did one, and we had, I think, 6,500 people watch over 3 days. So it kind of felt like people were tired of looking at their phone for a music festival, and people wanted to be outside. So we kind of stopped doing that. But what we did restart was every 2 weeks, we do something on Twitch where it's a music event, and it's 2 artists, typically in sobriety. And then in between, I will do like a 5-minute interview with either the artist or like suicide prevention or some type of recovery support, just to help educate kids on what we're trying to accomplish. So that's on S.A.F.E Spaces. That's the Twitch channel. And we're doing one March 31st. It's our last one. It's going to be 3 artists, and I'll have 3 different interviews. And but long story short, we're doing that, but we want to get back in person. So I think we'll be in Dallas at the end of April doing a music festival. I mentioned 1,000 tickets we have with the Rockies, June 18th, and I'm trying to get you guys to fly out for. So,
hey man, we gotta this S.A.F.E needs to, man, it's really needed out this way. Really needed out here in Wisconsin. I mean, honestly, as someone who is on a recovery journey, same with RJ, we literally just spoke yesterday about along the lines of where to go, what environment. Is there an environment out there for folks just like us who can feel safe, feel fine, feel comfortable at an event?
Right.
Really,
so it's coffee shops, right? I mean, you can't even go to a bar to meet people because there's alcohol. So, how do we kind of crack that code of how do we socially interact again?
Right.
If, we want to drink coffee or, club soda or, orange juice and cranberry. I mean, we still drink, we just don't drink alcohol.
Right.
And how do we set it up so it's fun and cool, and somebody's got to promote this or nobody's going to hear about it.
I'm going to chat with you. We're going to chat with you offline. I got some wonderful ideas. I've got an organization I'm going to connect you with as well too, if you would like. They're called, I can drop their name. They're called Badger Recovery.
Right.
And it's for students on and it's on campus. Yeah. I spoke with them. I spoke to the students. It was last month. Yeah, last month now.
How are they doing through COVID?
They, same as as everyone, and I hate saying that, as if, obviously they're,
dude, we're in crisis mode. I mean, it's okay to say we're screwed right
struggling.
Now. Yeah, we are isolated. This is not good for our mental health.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so that's what I shared with them. I talked a lot about mental health, what I'm doing to stay on track. Spoke about RJ, our podcast, if they want to continue talking, chatting with us. But long story short, yeah, we gotta connect, because this state of Wisconsin most definitely needs us, absolutely. Because I mean, RJ and I talk about it all the time, like where where's there to go,
right?
That you can find people like us. Rare, if there is,
we're out there.
Out here.
Yeah. I mean, you go to an event, and I don't know if you've noticed this, but I've talked about it before. Every time somebody offers you a drink, you say, "No, I don't drink. I'm sober." Oh, I don't drink all the time. Just like on the weekends, I usually have one or two, and I cut myself off. Have you noticed that is something that happens a lot?
As soon as you,
yes, they want to tell you how little they drink.
Yeah.
My favorite's like, "Oh, I don't ever drink." I'm like, "Ever?" They're like, "Oh, 1 or 2 a year." And I'm like, "That's not really never, but sure."
Okay.
Yeah, it's true. It feels like once you tell somebody that you do not drink, that you're in recovery, it's almost as if they feel then that they're being judged.
It's a trigger. Yeah.
Yes.
Like, oh, well, I don't do it all the time. It's just on special occasions. It's like, you can do it as if you're doing it safely, if you're not drinking and driving, if you're taking care of your responsibilities and just, unwinding on the weekend and being safe about it. Hey, more power to you.
Right.
I just couldn't. I didn't know when to stop. Once it was time to drink, it was time to drink till I passed out. Period.
Yeah, and one thing that we talked about too is like friends. Like, Mons and I have cut off a lot of friends. Like, we used to have quite a few friends, and now where do you go to meet new friends? Like, you can't really go to the bar. Like, there's softball, basketball league, but then, sometimes people find out that you're sober and they're like, "Oh, okay," and then you get ghosted. They think you're weird. They think something's wrong with you, right? So these events would be a great place to be able to mingle too. You go to, like you mentioned, a coffee shop, but you can't just go into a coffee shop and start talking to people. They're gonna be like, "What are you trying to sell?
Right.
Like, why are you talking to me? I'm here to be by myself and listen."
I don't want to buy any Mary Kay.
I'm reading my book. Excuse me.
Are you selling magazines? I don't want magazines.
A multi-level marketing company of some sort. But that's I'm telling you, man, this is most definitely needed in the States, and RJ and I would love to connect offline and figure out how we can, just to see what we can do. Yeah.
Have you guys checked out Clubhouse at all? The social media.
Is that an app?
Yeah,
it is.
That's where kind of looked into it a little bit. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, I created an account, but it's kind of weird. It was kind of awkward at first.
It is like going to a conference and you got like 10 people on stage, and then there's like 50 people listening, and then you can raise your hand to ask a question to these experts, and supposedly you can then get into their DM and then direct message them and get to know them. And but there is a recovery movement on Clubhouse, which is pretty cool, and it's not AA, and it is just kind of a community to meet. Anyways, I say all this. I'm going to try to get a channel or a show going on Clubhouse for Sobriety. So this would be a way that we can kind of all meet, and people in different areas say, "Hey, I'm looking to do something in Milwaukee, or I'm looking to do something in Chicago or Detroit, or wherever they're looking to do it." Because that's really the trick.
Yeah.
Is like, how do we kind of connect people? Yep. We've got a little grant money. We can, mail you, masks if that would help, or really it's kind of like a policy and procedure, what to do, how to use our nonprofit status to get half off seats,
yep.
And really kind of how to manage a sober section. The Rockies and the Denver Broncos had a sober section inside their stadium, and they got rid of it, both of them.
Probably because nobody knew about it.
Right. Nobody knew about it. And then people would sell those tickets, not telling people they were in a sober section.
Sure.
So, anyways, we haven't done anything with the NFL because I don't know if it's our community safe there really up to this point.
The NFL, I don't think will be too receptive to the message yet. I mean, they make, which is so unfortunate. Again, we're talking apparently dollars are more important than human lives. The NFL, I doubt at the current moment is going to be receptive at all to implementing a sober environment, just like what RJ stated, Budweiser.
Right. Well, I think we're at this tipping point because of COVID, right? I mean, they may have a little bit of a problem getting people back in stadiums because of COVID, right? And maybe the optics is just right now that they can, have a little support for. I mean, who doesn't want to save their kids, right? And I just kind of get back to that.
Yep.
We don't have to be this big abstinence group. We're like, look, we're just another culture for kids under 21, or however they want to, kind of let us in so it doesn't offend the Budweisers.
Well, and that's like the point we got to earlier. Just because, you're promoting sobriety doesn't mean you can't also promote healthy drinking. Like,
right.
They're not mutually exclusive. You can have both. And
exactly.
There's nothing wrong with that. But a lot of people can't get past that. Like, that is a little bit frustrating.
I feel like it's people think that we're like this alien. It's like we just can't put that substance in our body. That's it. That is it.
Right. We choose not to. We choose to drink coffee and orange juice and Coke and Pepsi and we still drink. We're just not drinking tequila right now.
Yeah.
Oh, just hearing that word just makes my stomach turn.
Tequila will kill you.
Pretty sure I felt dead. I thought I was dead a handful of times, waking up after that, and I do not miss it. RJ, how about yourself?
Right.
No. Ooh. That is the. I told people at work, like, I just got vaccinated last week. And the next day I felt like I had a hangover, and it was my first hangover in 8 years, and I did not handle it well. Oh man.
Right. It's a good reminder.
Right. Yeah. Like the people at work, like, oh, it wasn't that bad. And I'm like, yeah, but you're used to being hungover. I'm not.
Yeah. Right.
So Duke, this is my plan. I say we kick down the doors of Lambeau Field.
Yes.
Kick down the doors of the Kohl Center where the Badgers play. Basketball, hockey, volleyball, and kick down the doors of Camp Randall Stadium and get this implemented.
Sweet. Let's get the sober Badgers involved, and we'll find some local sober livings and treatment centers. We'll find an army of kids. I mean, they're out there. And that's kind of our job at Sober AF Entertainment, is really to do the outreach. We know treatment centers, we know recovery communities in that area. And so really the idea is like, hey, look, we're throwing this amazing party. Everyone's invited, right? And I think it's this community building that we're missing right now. I mean, we're so isolated as
That's what I was just going to say. This is a really good
different groups. And, you can't be mad at somebody when you're eating a chicken wing with them, watching football.
Yep.
Right. And we need this connection right now. And because we've been isolated, or, trying to figure out we can't go to bars, how do we kind of get reconnected? This mission's never been more important.
I agree. I hard to disagree with that.
So like
out of COVID.
Yeah. I was just going to say one thing that I've kind of noticed, and this just kind of like an epiphany too. There are a lot of different recovery groups, right? It feels like there's a different recovery group for every person in recovery, a lot of small groups. We really need to try to combine forces. We need to how can we support each other? Can we get underneath an umbrella? And really, I think that would lend to, knocking down the door to some of these legislators, getting a lot more active in communities, like showing that, just because you're in recovery doesn't mean you have to be a hermit at home. Right. So like you nailed on that point. I just want to take it a little bit further in the recovery community. Like, that's that connection that, that we need, that trunk of the tree, and then have the branches going out. So when you reach out, What do you think is, let's say you're advertising for an event. What do you think is like the biggest door in your way right now? What's the biggest hurdle you got to get over?
So it's, if we're looking for like corporate sponsorships, bragging that we've done 65 events. We've had 4,100 people attend. Mm-hmm. We've done virtual. We've had over 41,000 people attend. They're like, hey, that's great. Come back when you can put a zero behind that. So like trying to figure out some type of corporate sponsorship has been hard. Universities, want to know you for 2+ years before they work with you. That's been difficult.
That is so true.
So we found this group, Tailgate Guys, and they've already negotiated with 55 different universities, and they set up the big screen TV, the tent, the chairs. They've already negotiated the space with the university. So we don't need university approval. We just pay these guys, $1,000 or $1,500. We show up. There's signage. It's everything. It's a little bit of a corporate area, so it's less of a drunk fest. And then, we kind of reach out to all the different treatment centers and sober livings in the area. But to your point earlier, I mentioned 23.5 million people in some type of recovery from drug abuse and alcohol abuse. Mm-hmm. There's probably 1 million in AA. I mean, we have this assumption that AA is recovery, and it's not. Really, church is the recovery movement. I mean, there's more people who got sober through church than anything else. And to your point, there's Celebrate Recovery. There's all kinds of different recovery movements. And we're not trying to say we're a recovery movement. We're like just one of the things that you can use to help stay sober, right? Like the fact that I've been sober a while doesn't mean a great deal. We're all living in today. Mm-hmm. So, I think we can kind of get stuck in like, oh, he's got X amount of years and, he should be the leader because this guy only has, a less number of years, but it doesn't matter, right?
No.
I mean, we are in today, and today is the most important aspect of this. And, how do we look into the future and not keep looking in the past? So
that's such a good point.
And I think that thing I said before is like a closed mouth doesn't get fed. And we're taught to be this closed mouth because of our recovery. And we're not going to get, taken seriously, and we're not going to get any bit of funding. And at the same time, all these kids are dying, right? 82,000 kids. It's probably going to be 100,000 this coming year, plus suicide, plus all this stuff going down. And maybe there is a movement right in front of us that's as silly as a sober tailgate and then a sober section, but it's going to change some minds.
And you got to start somewhere. You give people other options, and they will choose. That's really what you got to do. You just got to present them like the status quo doesn't have to be there. That's something that the younger generation is kind of doing. So the fact that you got on, you said maybe a little bit too early. I think. Maybe you were right, but I think it's just around the corner. Like being able to, you're getting your network and being able to, put all this. This is really good. You just made me really excited. So this entire interview,
right?
This is something I'm telling you, Duke. We gotta figure this out. Just last night, I was looking at some stats, some numbers about. Alcohol.
What were you looking at last night, Mons? Well, what were you watching last night?
Ooh, how do I get one of those? That's a beautiful T-shirt. I need that T-shirt. Wild Aces. What's that story?
Have you ever watched the S.A.F.E? It was a brand new football league. They had 6 weeks. It was 4 teams, and it was on Twitch. And we streamed it every night. There were 2 games every Saturday. Last night was a championship. And Mons, before the season, we had our teams picked out. I was the Wild Aces. Mons was the Glacier Boys. And they played for the championship last night. And it came down to the final play, and the Wild Aces won. But, of the 6 weeks, I think there were 3 games that did not come down to the final play. It was a very exciting league. It's basically arena football. You sign on to Twitch, or you get the app on your phone, and you get to vote on the play that is going to be called on offense.
Oh, how cool.
Yeah, you pick the team that you want to follow, and then you get to call that team's plays. Like, yeah, like it's a really cool idea. And it was their first season, and they crushed it. They had, what would they say last night? Like 7.5 million views through the first 5 weeks. Like,
damn.
Yeah, and it's a lot of fun too. So a lot of celebrating. It was they say so. We had wide receiver Andrew Jamil on our sports podcast a couple times, who's a wide receiver for the Glacier Boys, and he told us that today, actually, the championship game was last night. Today they're having tryouts for the second season.
Right.
And their second season is going to start up in 3 months. So you're going to have like people that might be playing in this league, and then all of a sudden they get a contract to go to like training camp or something in the middle of that. Like second, you never know. You never know what's going to happen. So yeah, it was just really cool. So I just had to give them on some crap this morning about
that. Duke, I was going to mention about the numbers of alcoholism or the excess drinking that I was looking at last night is through the roof right now. I was reading it all late last night, and just like what you stated about how we're going to need this now more than ever, I most definitely agree with you on that point, because I think us coming out of this, obviously I'm going to remain optimistic here. Hopefully we get to that point to where COVID is no longer as big as a threat as it is. People get vaccinated, what have you, whatever, to each their own. But I feel like there's going to be this turning point in a sense, or not necessarily a turning point, us coming out of this isolation. I'm worried that folks are going to take the habits that they created during their isolation period into this into their life, in a sense of going to certain venues and etc. So this is needed now more than ever, in my honest opinion, because it seems like everybody's in a crisis mode right now. Everybody.
And I've already felt it. Like I went to this Music Cares event up in Fort Collins, and I remember driving up there, and it's getting dark, and I'm like, it's getting dark out. You're supposed to be home watching Netflix. Like, and just kind of this mentality of like, why don't we turn around? It's safer at home. You won't know anybody at this thing. And I was like, oh shit, like I've gotten used to staying home too much. This is ridiculous,
Absolutely.
And, pushed through it and went to the event. Glad I did. But it was just a reminder like, oh yeah, like all of us have gotten way too comfortable being isolated.
Anxieties are going to be higher, like you're, being in crowds and everything. Like I just see it when I watch TV shows. When I watch TV shows that were made, before 2020, it's like, where are their masks? There's too many people there. Like I was watching a highlight of the Badgers in the tournament in 2017, and I'm like, why are all these people touching hands? Like, why are there so many people? Like, yeah, it's just that anxiety is going to be there when we get out in public too. So,
what time are the Badgers today? That's the important question.
1:40. I think that's 1:40 Eastern or maybe 2:40 Eastern. One of those, either 1:40 Eastern or 2:40 Eastern.
Let's go Badgers. That would be.
That's what I'm saying.
Good to see them make a long run, make the Final Four.
So in Colorado too.
Yeah,
and they, like we were talking about earlier, they looked really good in their win. So that'll be a lot of fun to see them make a run too.
They couldn't miss.
Might just keep it up.
So I don't have any more questions on my end. I think that was awesome. That was all right.
June 18th, we're gonna get you guys to throw out the first pitch. The Brewers at the Rockies Friday night. How's that sound?
Oh, it's hard for me to commit right now.
I can't turn that down. There we go. That's a dream. Throwing out the first pitch. Let's go.
Why not? Now it might be at the wiffle ball game beforehand.
That's all right. I got a wicked curveball. We'll get it figured out. Yeah.
Oh, good.
I got a wicked curveball. Let's play some wiffle ball.
That'd be a better stadium to throw the first pitch out in Coors Field. I threw the first pitch out in the Brewers game, and
right.
Don't be mad because you short
I'm a Cardinals
fan.
I'm from right outside St. Louis, so I'm a Cardinals fan. So I always give him crap. Always.
Right.
But no, it was a great pitch. Always. I'm an athlete. What can I say? No.
There you go.
So what events do you have coming up here? So June 18th, we have a Brewers Rockies game. So where can people go to find that? And then do you have any other events that are coming up?
Yes. So I suggest everyone goes to our website. We've got a really fun, interactive website that's got a bunch of videos of stuff that we've done. Like I said, we've partnered with the NHL, NBA, and Major League Baseball for 65 events over the last 3 years. And then going forward, we're filling up a calendar. But at the moment, our next live stream is March 31st. June 16th is the Brewers Rockies game. We're finaling a music festival at the end of April in Dallas. I think it's called Ubi Doobie, is some big EDM event. I'm probably pronouncing it wrong. I have these boomer moments that, anyways,
Sounds good to me.
Yes.
It sounds like Scooby Snacks a little bit.
Yes, it's going to be a blast. And it'll just be good to be kind of back in person. But right now we're looking at September 31st with a Mets game. We are looking at September 2nd, Virginia at Virginia Tech. And we're looking at the Rutgers Michigan game on September 25th. October 2nd is the USC versus Colorado game here in Boulder. And then a Baylor at TCU game, I want to say, is October 25th. So basically, it's we got a couple in the works. I think it's going to fill up fast. The phone's beginning to ring again. People are asking, hey, what can we do? We got COVID, but we think we can do this. There's a music festival in Colorado with Flow Rider on July 8th and 9th that we may or may not be hosting a sober support tent at. We're in the middle of working that out. So really go to the website. If you want to host something, there's a pull down option that you can apply to host your own event, and we will outreach for you. And we will help you set it up through our nonprofit is really the goal. So really the goal is let's figure out how to have some fun and get people on this calendar so they can host their own. Really, I don't want to do it. I want it to be a national do-it-yourself sober support movement, right? And we're just teaching people how to do their own. And really, and that's it, right? We
awesome.
help people host their own, and that's how we change this culture.
Oh yeah, that's the mission. That is
so.
The mission.
What's your website?
Sober SOBERAFE.com.
Awesome. So
Sober AFE.com.
So pretty easy. Sober AF as in sober and fun entertainment. So SoberAFE.com.
We appreciate that. We appreciate you. So, Duke Rumley, thank you for joining Untapped Keg. Thank you for everything you're doing with Sober AF Entertainment. It's really awesome. And thank you for sharing your stories. 31 years in recovery. Congratulations.
Thank you.
That's fantastic.
Miracle. Freaking miracle.
That is what it feels like sometimes. I'm hoping one day I can say I'm 31 years sober. So we really
don't
appreciate
drink
you
and
joining
don't
us.
die.
Yeah, there we go.
Right.
So let's see here, SoberAFE.com. Check it out. Hit up that music festival at the end of the month. And we look forward to working together in the future. So
I want you guys to know, like, nobody else is doing what you do. So I just want to say I kind of appreciated somebody spinning away from the fluff and really talking about the hard stuff. Yeah. Right. And you guys, I mean, it's really not many people are getting, as, kind of looking at their own past and talking about their own shortcomings. You guys have been really vulnerable in these past podcasts that I've listened to. And there's a lot of folks talking fluff on podcasts. So, kind of keep it up. You've got some great speakers. And it was just kind of really cool. Like, we can talk about the Super Bowl, but let's kind of talk about, how do we, live our lives when we got some anxiety going on, and it's really cool to see.
Yeah, appreciate that. That's
thank
awesome.
you.
Yeah,
thank you. Yeah, really appreciate that. But that's all I got.
All right. Well, thank you everybody for joining us. Thank you again for Duke for joining us. And let's try to be better tomorrow than we were today. Because at least if we don't make it, we tried. Everybody have a good week. We'll talk to you later.